All right, so here's what we're gonna go ahead and cover today, folks. Not a huge absolute agenda. We want to make sure we get through some of the more important topics for you. So what are the main reasons a home can ignite during a wildfire? And there's three primary reasons that we'll talk about a little bit more here in depth. It's important to understand what are the root causes of structure damage and structure destruction during a wildfire in order to best protect against it, and how FireFoil in particular can really protect your structure against all three reasons for ignition. After all of that, after we go through our reasons, we're going to do a Q&A. Dan is our resident brain trust, but if there's any logistical questions or other aspects that I can chime in, I'm certainly going to jump in there as well. So a little bit about FireFoil. I mentioned Dan, who's on the call, who already was just chatting with you, Toby, for example. Dan is our founder and president, and he's been doing this business since 2004. The man is a lifelong innovator. He's a resident of Southern California and has seen his fair share of wildfires, both in terms of, in and around San Diego, but also, of course, in the course of this business as well, right? And working with lots of different customers and clients in the wild and urban interface who've needed our product on short notice. And more recently, FireFoil changed our name from FireSat. That was the business that Dan had previously, but we've always had the same mission. We are on a mission to protect structures from wildfire threats effectively, probably the most important part, and affordably. And in time to make a difference. The best case scenario, of course, when we say in time, is that you're prepared in advance and you happen to have this material and you have the plan and the wherewithal to deploy it on your structure before the fire is imminent. But we've had plenty of instances in which people were reactive and they said, I need this, the fire's coming, and we got it out to them and we helped them when it was needed. Dan also is our primary designer, and we are the designer and manufacturer of Wildfire Ember and fire shields, and that the shields themselves, Dan is going to go a little bit more into, but these are aluminized structure wraps. Think big sheets, right? And we'll talk about the various sizes and how valuable that is for you guys. But these are valuable at blocking flying embers or firebrands, however you refer to them. And then, of course, reflecting radiant heat, which is a perfect segue into our next session. So what are the three causes of wildfire home ignition? Well, I've mentioned a couple of these already. The big one that I think a lot of people aren't as conscious of, that they really should be, are wind-blown embers. These cause 80 to 90% of all home ignitions during a wildfire. And, when you read about how these things can travel on the wind and create spot fires by catching, if not brush, then on structures well in advance of the front line of a fire. And you recognize that it is what allows a fire to hop and skip. You understand the importance of creating that defensible space around your property and preventing the structure itself from igniting through those embers. And FireFoil is very good and very effective in preventing embers from catching on your structure. I think the one we all think about is direct flame. This is less common as a threat during a wildfire for your structure than embers. This is when the fire moves along the brush or whatever material and catches your home as the wildfire progresses through the forest and up onto your property. This is often referred to as a burn-through event. Much more rare, and also referred to as direct fire impingement. Of course, you still want to have the ability to protect against this, but it's honestly not as common as a reason for structure ignition as these wind-blown embers. And then the third cause, of course, is radiant heat. And this one is a little bit more conceptually abstract, I think, for folks. But basically, this is the same concept of being a few feet off the campfire and feeling that heat come onto your skin. Radiant heat during a wildfire, let's say from a tree just a few feet off, 15 feet away, can get so incredibly hot that it increases the heat of the organic material on your home, and it eventually causes that to hit a combustion point. And again, we're going to talk a little bit about how FireFoil can protect against that. So let's keep these three ignition causes in mind as we're talking through the rest. And with that, I'm going to pass it off to Dan.
Hello, everyone. Basically, the fact that you're on this call means you've got some awareness about wildfires, and you've probably dealt with them or just being introduced to them. But we'll start with some of the real basic stuff and just move quickly through it. One of the first things as far as hardening your home, and hardening your home means reducing the combustibility of it, roof, siding, decks, and so forth. But one of the first things you can do is the defensible space. Ideally, you want to get at least 100 feet away from the structure, and you want to thin out the vegetation, get the dead leaves, the small twigs. If you've got a clump of trees in one area and you can see it in your heart to pull one of those trees out just to thin them a little bit, things like that go a long way, because what will happen is as the fire approaches, anything in that 100-foot zone becomes fuel, and the fire is going to crawl. The fire doesn't always just, consume and go in a straight line forward. A wildfire is a series of ignitions. An ember blows a foot. It goes 6 feet that way and 30 feet that way and a half a mile that way and starts new fires. So having that zone around your house, especially the 5 feet next to the home, is very important. If you've got mulch or bark or something like that right near the base of your home, it looks great. My dad made us spread that stuff every year. But if you've got a wildfire and embers land in that mulch and it does ignite and catch fire, it goes right up and hits the bottom of the siding on your house, right next to the concrete foundation. And that's a really not a good situation. So you want to keep you in that 5-foot zone. If you can put gravel or rock or pavers or something else other than a combustible, it goes a long way to helping save your home. And then also a Class A roof and fire resistant siding and decking. Can you go to the next slide? So when people start to harden a home, it's a process. It can be expensive. You're talking about changing a roof over, especially if your home was built in the 70s, 80s, or 90s even, which didn't sound that long ago, a while ago, but now it's getting longer, I guess. But a Class A roof for about a 1,500 square foot home is going to run around $25,000. These are kind of California prices. You can be 10 to 15% less if you're from Montana, Idaho, Oregon, Colorado. Replacing the siding on the house, and that's always kind of a harder one for people to do because they generally like the looks of their home and stuff. But a lot of people will go to hardy planks, which is a cement composite that's put on there, or you can use stucco. But again, it's an added cost, but there are some other benefits that come out of that. Fire resistant decking is a big thing. The deck is the first thing that generally comes in contact with the fire, the ground fire that's moving for you. It will also catch a lot of the embers. Embers tend to collect in 90-degree angles, where a wall and a deck meet, where two walls meet. When they get into a corner, the wind will blow them in, they'll settle, they'll collect. And we'll talk about embers in a little bit, but they deserve more respect than they get. So by the time you've done all this, it can be 1 to 2 years. You've done your roof maybe this year, you do your siding maybe the following year, and maybe you decide to take out the decking in that third year. But what happens to your home while you're doing all that? The fires don't stop. They don't avoid because, oh no, Toby's not done with his house yet, so we'll burn a different direction. It just doesn't work like that. So one of the things that FireFoil does with these new larger shields that we have that are 1,000 to 2,000 square feet, and I should back up one step. This material, this aluminum structure wrap, if you're not familiar, has been used by the Forest Service and the archaeologists and the resource planners in the Forest Service to protect historical structures, critical infrastructure in the parks, bridges. We provide them to the power companies that are wrapping the bottom of poles, to the railroad companies that are wrapping wooden trestles in the Midwest on the base of it when they have large grass fires that go through. It's been used for years because it's proven to work. And one of the things about it is it's just simple physics. The aluminum reflects 95 to 97% of the radiant heat away from your structure, be it a telephone pole, a railroad trestle, or your garage. And it reflects that heat away. And the way that works is a combustible has an auto ignition temp. There's a point where you can heat your wall up or your roof up or a piece of something that's combustible to where it will start off gassing VOCs, volatile organic compounds. So it's about 575 to 800 degrees. And it's a big spread because it depends on what type of wood, what kind of material, what kind of moisture content, and the intensity of the radiant heat. But once material gets up to about 575 degrees, it starts to off gas. You can literally see it. It's coming off in just in a gas. And what happens is when those firebrands or a burning ember blow through that, they ignite it. That's how you get 80 to 90% of these structures, the structure ignition caused by the embers, because unfortunately that structure is already heated up to a point where it's so hot, it's off gas. It's just asking to burn. And all it needs is a spark or an ember to land on it to facilitate that. So we've done tests where we test against, now aluminum will melt about 1200 degrees. We run it up to 1157 degrees. We run them for 10 minutes to replicate the intense heat of a fire that's right in front of you, right next to you. And after 10 minutes, the temperature underneath, we use cedar samples, 8 to 10% moisture content. So they're very dry, just like most of the homes in the WUI. They've been baked by the sun season after season after season, get a little rain, then they bake them out again. And the temperature is only 181 degrees and 186 degrees. But that's the difference between our ember shields and our fire shields. And I'll explain the difference of those later. So we keep your house from radiating out that volatile organic gas that those firebrands can't ignite. So that's kind of the theory of it. And the reason that the Forest Service and the archaeologists have used it to protect historical structures, because they're mandated by Congress. Spend whatever, do whatever, whatever it takes. We do not want to lose our heritage or our historical landmarks. So of all the options they have in most cases, they use the structure wrap because they can't leave a crew there full time to wait for the fire to arrive today or tomorrow or 2 weeks from now, but they can wrap it and leave with confidence that it's going to be okay when that fire comes through. So that's the reason why it's used, and that's why we've been using it successfully now for 20 plus years. Next slide. Sorry, I get on a tangent. It happens from time to time. So 80%, 90%, we've talked about that. The respect to firebrands. Several studies have been done. We've had to kind of bring a bunch of them together, and we're really blessed to have Fumi Takanishi, who's a professor emeritus from Case University. He's probably done more field fire testing than anyone over the years. And he's just an expert on materials, fire science, combustion, all the way down the line. But we've coordinated with Fumi, and essentially we had to build an analog. What are we protecting from? The general firebrand weighs 0.2 of a gram up to about 6.5 grams for Douglas fir. Douglas fir throws the biggest firebrands for some reason. Each one of those little firebrands blown in the wind, we used to think they traveled a mile. Then about in 1980, Jack Cohen figured that out. And in the 90s, we saw some that were going 1.5 miles. And a few years ago, at the bootleg fire in Oregon, we had one that had landed. It was the size of my fist, and it went 2 miles and still had enough energy in it to start a fire. They have a temperature from 800 to 1150 degrees in general on there. The first 60 seconds, it dissipates that heat. It goes down pretty rapidly. By 90 seconds, that's at a point where it doesn't quite have the energy to ignite wood or anything. But if at any time it runs through some of that VOC gas, you got a fire. So when we designed our ember shields, we wanted to make them lighter and easier to deploy so that they can cover the roofs of structures. Because even if you have a Class A roof, there's a lot of times where you'll have a roof valley that will either have tar paper expose for waterproofing, or there may be wood trim on the edge of a vent pipe or a fireplace or any kind of a build out on your structure. Sometimes people will install solar panels. And when the installers are putting those in, they'll pull back a couple of tiles, asphalt tiles or something, and they'll leave an area exposed. And so you always want to make sure that you're covered. And NIST did a study, and they determined, they were the first ones to figure out it was an 80-90% number on these ember brands, because everybody assumed it was just the fire coming through, but it was the embers starting the fires. And they did a study, and they found out that 90% hardening does not translate to 90% reduction in vulnerability. And then their second summary on this, it's 2205 NIST research program. The second note that they said was only 100% ember protection can translate to 100% vulnerability removed. So that's where we came up with the ember shields, so we can quickly wrap an entire roof with 1,000 or 2,000 square footers, one or two pieces joined together. The roof is covered, and then we can do a perimeter wrap and do it just as quickly because we have sizes that are optimized for that. 50 by 10, 50 by 15, 50 by 20s length will go right around the home. And we also have 100 by 10s, 15s, and 20s. Next slide. Sorry, I'm kind of getting excited about this stuff. So what do you do if you've got a burn through coming at your property, and you kind of know it? You notice the natures. You've lost neighbors and homes that were down the road over the years, and so you kind of know what to expect. Well, it's really important you remove as much fuel as possible. From now on, when you're driving home and you drive up to your house and you look at your home, don't think of it as a home. Think of it as fuel. It's fuel. What parts are going to burn? What are the most susceptible? What are the most vulnerable? How is the fire going to get there? Is an ember going to land on the deck and light your deck on fire? Is it going to land on a roof or get caught in a gutter that's filled with pine needles? How is the fire going to get there? And then work from the house back to the edge of your property as best you can to eliminate those things. If you've got a fire coming through, we definitely want to use our L70. We have supplied the same exact structure wrap, aluminum structure wrap, that the Forest Service has used ever since day one. We support the teams in the fields. The governments do large buys and they put them into caches and stuff, but we support their field teams because we can get it there faster and quicker, and they know that we've got the right product. We have redesigned this product after 20 years, and we had this acquisition last year, and our new CEO said, what's on your wish list? What do we need to do to make this available so that everybody can use it? It's quicker to deploy and it's better in any way. What is it robots? Is it drones? Is it different materials? What is it? And he put me on a mission for 6 months, and there was no holds. What would you do if you can do anything you want to do? And it was larger shields. We needed to make larger shields. We wanted to get them lighter in weight because we were currently selling, or providing 65-pound, 55 to 65-pound rolls of material that people had to pack up on the roofs and get them up in the lookout towers and get them up on odd-shaped historical buildings. We wanted to reduce the weight. We wanted to not compromise the heat resistance or the strength of it. And we wanted to make it lighter. And that was the main thing, was the lighter and make it stronger. And then obviously the sizes. From the roof to the ground, most times is about 15 feet. And you can, if it's 20, if it has a large porch sticking out, we might go down the wall and has a porch on the bottom, that's a 20-footer. With our 100 by 20 footers, we can line, and in fact, our CEO and James, our COO, who had never wrapped a building ever, one of the first things they wanted to do was wrap a building, see how it works. We made these shields, we took it out, and we actually have a video of Mike and James wrapping the perimeter, 3,000 square feet of a structure with two 100 by 15 fire shields. It was 3,000 square feet, and they did it in 31 minutes. It would have taken, and they just clipped it in space because we wrapped these buildings several times during the day doing testing on the materials. It would have taken another 30 minutes to anchor that for high winds. And to do that, normally you would staple it into place just to hold it in place. And then you can use chicken wire. If you've got really critical or really odd shaped things, we use chicken wire to wrap it around 90 degrees, and we can take really high winds with chicken wire. And we have a new strapping material we can use now that you can literally wrap all the way around the structure, pull it tight. You can put staples every once in a while just to hold it in place. And then you can also run them over the roof. And we've successfully, with chicken wire, withstood 70-mile-an-hour winds, gusts to 90 for several days. With our new material, we think we're going to be safe in that 70 to 80 mile an hour, 80 gusts, 70 mile an hour winds. It's very solid, very secure, and the material is really strong. So when we design these new shields, other than having, rather than a 5-foot roll that's 200 feet long, now we have a 50-foot that's 20 feet wide, which wraps the whole side of a house. Or we have 100 by 20 that will go halfway around an entire house from the roof to the ground in minutes. We also reduced the weight about 14%, and we increased the heat resistance by about 15%. So we actually get better numbers. In our old wrap, after 10 minutes at 1157 degrees, we're around 212 degrees temperature on the wood underneath. We're at 181 with our L70. And that is what we want to put on the deck, the bottom of the house as it's going around. We've actually built an L50, which has our L70 heavy duty material on the bottom 10 feet, and it has our L30, which is our ember shield on the top half. And so you get the best of both worlds. It's a lighter shield. It's a larger, again, 50 by 20 or 100 by 20 in that configuration. So you've got the good stuff on the bottom, the heavy stuff, and then you've got your light stuff that's going to protect from embers on the top. And if you have any other questions about this stuff, we have prepared a wildfire prep checklist that you can go through that's really well done. And you can go through, just take it with a clipboard and a cup of coffee and just walk around your property. Yeah, I've got that. No, I don't have that. And no, it'll make it available to you. I think you've just chatted it to us. And with that, is there another one? Oh, there is. Okay. So one of the things that we've kind of talked about a little bit about is, as you're going through the hardening process, what do you do if a fire is coming? We have a program, we have a financing program that we offer, that if somebody wanted to get this material and get it right away, it's on approval of credit, but it's very friendly. Average cost for a single family home be between $5,000 and $6,000 max. I mean, that's going to be a good sized home at that rate. Rather than buying it all at once, that's probably going to be 5-6 rolls of that's 6,000 square feet of material. Rather than buying it, you can buy them all at once, obviously, and you can have them, keep them, or you can also finance them. $1,000 down on a couple of years is about $180 a month, and you can pay that off at any time. There's no prepayment penalties on that. And that's not to try to sell more stuff. We're just trying to make it accessible to the people that need it when they need it. And so we have that option in there too. If you have a Class A roof already and you're assured that there's no wood or any exposure up there, you can just look at doing a perimeter wrap around your house. Go from the fascia board down. We always recommend that somebody get an extra roll if they're just going to do a perimeter wrap, because it always ends up being a piece of a deck. They've got a wood pile they don't want to move. We always say move the wood pile, but you can wrap them too, and double wrap them, triple wrap them if you're going to leave it next to the house. But they just come in handy, and we've got rolls that are available, and you'll never regret having that extra roll. Decks, outbuildings, nearby trees. If you have a tree near the house that's 5, 6, 7 feet away, and it's a nice big pine or a fir or something like that, you don't want to lose it. We recommend limb that thing up about 10 feet so it's above the gutters, and then you can wrap that house. If you've that tree, if you have extra wrap it around the tree. That way, should the fire come through and that tree ignites, it's not going to create a radiant heat issue for your house. When wildfires come through, they tend to move, depending on what kind of fire it is, between 8 to 12 miles an hour. That's how much they'll generally go. They'll go a little, almost twice as fast up a hill. So if you live on a slope, you need to be aware of that. As a fire is approaching your house, you're going to have about 5 to 7 minutes of preheating. The radiant heat is going out and it's heating your house up, and it's getting it hotter and hotter and hotter and closer to combustion. It's also doing the same thing to all the fuels on the ground. If you got the little 1 hour fuels, that's a 1/4 inch twig, and you've got your dry grasses and all that stuff is getting dried out as the fire moves towards your house. When the fire actually goes past your house, it's generally about 2 to 3 minutes. So that's the amount of time the L70 has to deal with the brunt of the fire. Within a couple of minutes, it goes past. We've got a video that Professor Takanishi did when he was doing field burns, where they literally set a forest on fire, and they had a wrap structure with cameras on it, and you can see the fire and how fast it comes, and it burns right past the structure, and the wrap structure is safe. So that's the primary thing, and I can get off on 100 tangents, so it's best if I just quit talking and say, does anybody have any questions?